for any creator, I think maybe the number one important thing to keep in mind or to discover is what inspires you. And if I go on, I like to run, and if I go on a run and I force myself to listen to music, and particularly music that I don't know, if I force myself to listen to new music, I will have an idea. I will get inspired on some level, and then it's just a matter of sitting down at the piano and just being there. It's almost like a numbers game. It's like just be at the piano.
Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I appreciate it. Singer-songwriter Jon McLaughlin is bringing heart, soul, and storytelling to Las Vegas via his Scenarios tour, taking the stage at Myron's at the Smith Center on April the 11th. From his breakout debut, Indiana, to his current album, Scenarios, or Scenarios, depending on what part of the country you're from, Jon has built a career on deeply personal, piano-driven songs that connect in powerful ways. Today, we're talking about his musical journey, his evolution as an artist, and the stories behind the songs that resonate with fans everywhere. For ticket information, go to thesmithcenter.com, thesmithcenter.com. For everything about Jon, go to johnmcl.com, johnmcl.com. Follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And Jon, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, what is it about you and pianos? Can you explain that to us here? As opposed to the
That's a great leadoff question.
as opposed to a xylophone or a kazoo, or what is it about a piano?
We didn't have a xylophone in my house when I was growing up. I guess
Fair
we just
enough.
had a piano. My I'm the youngest of three, and my brother, my sister, they were all taking piano lessons like, as long as I can remember. So I don't have any memories where I wasn't already playing piano. And if it was a xylophone, I'd probably be playing xylophone.
Now, your dad was a musician, right? And I think your grandfather was a musician as well.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
did they
So
play
my
the xylophone or also piano?
they probably played some xylophone
Okay.
throughout the years, but
All right.
they were both woodwind guys. My granddad played clarinet, a little bit of saxophone, but clarinet was his main thing. And my dad grew up playing saxophone, played bass as well. He was, mainly remember him playing bass when I was younger. He was playing with a band. That's actually how he met my mom. He was on tour with his band. He dropped out of college and went on tour and met my mom she was working. She was a bartender at a show down in Texas. My dad's from Indiana. So, music is just in the blood on that side.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you got two daughters, and they're going to eventually probably inherit your passion. You don't want to force it on them, but there is a piano in the house, from what I understand. So
Oh,
if they
yeah.
want to noodle the keys a little bit, they could do it. So
No,
now,
and they do for sure. They
yeah,
do.
unlike your,
And you're right. I haven't forced it on them. This is an issue that I don't, I don't know if I'm doing it right or not because it's not what I grew up with. I grew up in lessons every week. It was very regimented. And that's not what they have because I saw it as a small miracle that I stuck with music because most of the time I wanted to quit and play basketball, and my parents, saw that I was better at piano than I am at basketball, and so they kept me in it. But my daughter, there's a piano in the house. There's a piano back here in my studio, and whatever they want to learn, I kind of show them, I teach them, and they mess around with it, and they're definitely drawn to it. They love music. They're great singers, and they have a knack for piano.
yeah, they're going to have a great
And
head start in that household, I think.
yeah, hopefully.
You mentioned your dad not going to college, but you did. And there's a gentleman there, a professor, that actually got you really hooked on music despite your musical background at home, Jonathan Brooks. So tell us a little bit about Jonathan Brooks.
That's right. Hey, kudos to your research here. I'm
Thank you.
impressed. Yes, Dr. Brooks. I believe my freshman year was his first year teaching. I believe I have that right because at the time it was just Professor Brooks. It wasn't even Dr. Brooks yet. But I took his theory, 101. I'd never taken a theory class. I took oral comprehension with him, and the program at Anderson University was very classical based. And so we were doing like Roman numeral analysis of these Bach, fugues and stuff like that, which I saw as being completely pointless. All I wanted to do was just write music in the practice rooms. But for the first time, I realized how simple music was, you know, how like you just have 12 notes. That's all there is. There's just 12 notes. And most songs are, 1 4 5, it's where that saying three chords and the truth come from. And all these, these like Beethoven pieces and stuff like that. It was a lot of like, oh, this is really 1 4 5. It's just now he modulates to another key, and that's way you feel like there are a million different
Mhm.
chords, but it's really just 1 4 5. He's just going anyway. He just Dr. Brooks completely opened this whole side of music that really changed things for me. Dr. Brooks and then Dr. Freeling was my piano professor. Those two were huge in my musical, journey.
Have they followed your career?
Yeah, I kept in touch with Dr. Freeling. In fact, I think it was earlier this year. I was down. He lives down in Florida now, and I was playing. He came to the show, so I got to see him. And I wasn't as close with Dr. Brooks because I just took those two classes with him, and he had no idea if I was even enjoying his classes. The only reason why I know that is because years later I went back to Anderson University and I was part of this weekend event where I was doing a Q&A, and the dean of the music department was asking me some questions, and he said, "Do you have any advice for any of the young, music students here at Anderson University now?" And I said, "If Dr. Brooks is still here, take any class he's teaching. Just take every class he's
Great
teaching."
advice.
Yeah, and I got to say, because he was huge, everything I just told you. So afterward, he found me. I didn't even know if he was still a professor there. He found me. I hadn't seen him in, at that point, 15, 17 years or something like that. And he said, I had no idea. I thought you hated my class.
He remembered you.
He remembered. Yeah. And he was, which I'm like, yeah, I can see that because I never participated. I didn't really want to be there in the beginning. It took a while for me to even realize the significance of what he was teaching. And of course, as just a self-absorbed, 20-year-old, I had no wherewithal to be like, maybe I should go and thank him for what he's done for me. So I was so grateful that I had that night back in my alma mater that I could say that. And I'm so grateful that he was there and that we got to connect in that way.
Closing the circle, it's a great moment in anybody's life when you can do that type of thing.
Yeah.
When you decided to go pro, and I don't mean football, although you would have liked to, or basketball actually, but when you
Basketball.
decided to
Yeah.
go pro, your approach and style and thought process is very personal. Your songs reflect that. Why did you decide to go that particular road versus so many other ways you could go in terms of song
Yeah.
music?
You know, I think there may be two main elements there. Um, One is writing lyrics in sort of the hierarchy of compliments that one could give. Someone could come up to you and say, I love your show. And they could say a couple different things. And maybe for you, you may personally be like, I want them to say, you ask questions that I never would have thought. You're such a great question asker or whatever. But there's probably a hierarchy for you as an interviewer
Mhm.
that you would prefer. And it's same for me. If someone comes up to me and says, "You're a great singer," I'm of course grateful. Any compliment is great. Thank you. But that's not high on my list. And if I had to say my number one, it's probably a lyricist, and then like in a quick almost tie for first is a pianist. And so lyrics just matter to me. And there are times that I wish that they didn't, because there are bands that I listen to and artists that I listen to where the lyrics seemingly are so throwaway. Half the time I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying. I just love this song. And it's like the lyric is not a part so much.
Right.
It's not like with Bob Dylan, it's like, well, it's about the lyric. With Dawes, it's about the lyric. With other artists, it's not so. And I've had times where I've been jealous of that. And I've thought, maybe I'll just be one of those guys where I'm like, it's not about the lyric. I'm just singing whatever. It's about the song. But that at the end of the day, I'm like, as much as I would like for that to be true, because it would make for less work for me, it just doesn't. For whatever reason, it just doesn't fit. And so the lyric has to matter. And for it to matter, it has to be personal. You know. And the other reason is I grew up in the church as a believer, and I knew that I didn't want to go into Christian music. I didn't want to be a Christian artist. I just never wanted to. And I felt like as soon as you do that, you limit yourself to those who would be willing to go into that section of the record store, to use an outdated reference.
I love it though.
Yeah. To even look at those records.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
was
like,
looking at the record bins on Amazon.com the other day, and
yeah, exactly. So I thought, if you're gonna do that, which is a true thing, I think my reasons for doing that were always felt true and pure. Then I'm like, well, then you got to be honest. Your responsibility as a songwriter is then to just write songs as honestly as possible, and see what comes out.
and you obviously connect with people. When you were mentioning about the emphasis on lyrics for you, I was thinking you're the Ira Gershwin rather than the George Gershwin.
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny that you say that because I'm obsessed with Gershwin right now.
They're wonderful,
Um,
both of them. But Ira did the
yeah.
lyrics, George did the melodies. They're both together. It's wonderful. But I think your focus on lyrics can emphasize your personal a point of view more than the music, the melody side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I mean, if someone were to come up and be like, gosh, you're just like Ira and George Gershwin in one, I would cry. I'd be
Yeah,
like,
that
that's
would
the
be
ultimate
ideal.
compliment.
Exactly right. Yeah. That may happen yet. Wait for it.
Yeah, we'll
Especially
see.
when you come to the Smith Center April 11th at Myron's.
That's
Is this
right.
your first time performing in Las Vegas?
It is, which I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Years and years ago, I did have a show scheduled there. I don't remember. This is a terrible story because I don't even remember why I had to cancel it. But I mean, it was never, we never actually publicized it. We never got that. But we had like a hold at a venue, and I wanted to play there. And for whatever reason, I had to cancel it. But yeah, I've been to Vegas many times for private events and things like that, but I've never played an actual show there. So I'm
You'll
very
enjoy it.
excited.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it, especially that room. It's very good for sound.
Yeah.
Lights, they
Yeah.
modeled it recently too, so it's even better. I can't keep getting over the fact I'm thinking to myself, you look so clean cut, and yet and you're not a Christian performer, as you say, a Christian music performer, but and your music is personal, your lyrics obviously are personal, and yet you just look so maybe it's the Indiana in you. You look so wholesome and clean cut.
It's true. If the camera could come down, you could see I do have lots of tattoos.
Yes, you do.
But even the tattoos are wholesome. I've
Yes, they're
got
clean
like
cut tattoos.
Bible verses and my kids' names and things like that. Yeah, it's funny when my wife and I were newly married and we moved into a neighborhood in Indianapolis where we're both from, and we were meeting one of the new neighbors. And at the time, I had a couple tattoos and I had a motorcycle. And this woman, just in passing in the conversation, was like, "Yeah, that restaurant over there, it's great. It used to be awful. It was filled with, it was kind of a biker bar, just, guys with tattoos and motorcycles." And I'm like, I look so clean cut that she's like, "Surely this is safe for me to say this in front of you."
You immediately rolled up your sleeves at that point and she had a heart attack.
Right. And she's like, "No, that one doesn't count."
That to me would be a great story to incorporate in a song. I just think it's a
That
very
is true.
concept. Well, what's your, I hate to almost ask this because it's so formulaic as a question, but I do get intrigued by artists that I talk with who are writers and composers and do both, the Ira and George Gershwin of it all. But do you have a process, and maybe that's not the right word, procedure, approach that you take to writing music? In other words, I ask authors a lot of times about this. Do they sit down one day, 1 hour a day, or for a block of time, or just when the inspiration hits, or is it every other Tuesday, or after breakfast,
Hmm.
before breakfast, something along those lines?
Yeah. I mean, the answer is yes. I think for any creator, I think maybe the number one important thing to keep in mind or to discover is what inspires you. And if I go on, I like to run, and if I go on a run and I force myself to listen to music, and particularly music that I don't know, if I force myself to listen to new music, I will have an idea. I will get inspired on some level, and then it's just a matter of sitting down at the piano and just being there. It's almost like a numbers game. It's like just be at the piano, just mess around, come up with something. Um, and so that's kind of my way into the room. I've told people. I told a friend of mine when he was, he has a kind of more conventional job, and I was talking about how hard writing is, and he's like, but of course, it seems not hard. I mean, what's hard about it? Like you obviously can write songs, so you can do it. What's so hard about it for you? And I said, imagine like where your office is. So every day you get up and you just go to your office. Imagine if every day you don't know where your office is. You get up and you shower and you have your breakfast and you get in your car and you start driving. You're like, we're starting from scratch every day. And then at the end of the day, you come home and your wife's like, "How was your day?" And you're like, "I couldn't find it today. I have no idea where it is." That's what it feels like as a writer. But those two things, getting inspired, going to see other concerts, and just sitting at the piano, that's my best. Those are my best chances. Those gives me my best chances of finding the office.
How do you react when because you're so busy with the family as well and touring, but when you do sit down at your office where sometimes you can find it as
Hmm.
you're driving around after breakfast, but
Yeah.
do you work it out where it's somewhat schizophrenic in the sense that because you're working from home, the family has to understand there's a period of time when you're working at the piano and you're coming up with a song to leave you alone and not come in to tie shoelaces or time for dinner or whatever happens to be.
Yeah, I mean, really, my daughters are 13 and 10, almost 11 now.
Well, the shoelaces, don't worry. Yeah, that doesn't matter anymore. So,
Right. Yeah. So I mean, 8 years ago, I was in the thick of it. Now it's like I've got so much time. There's no excuse now. I mean, my
right?
girls are so busy. There's some days where like, I drop them off at school and I don't see them for like 10 hours,
Yeah,
so
plenty of time.
so I've got lots of time. Yeah.
Do they?
And I've got my own little space that's not attached to the house.
That help.
That's crucial.
Yeah,
My wife, if she were here, she would be like, that's we only function that way.
yeah,
He's got to have his own space
yeah.
that's
No,
not attached to the house.
yeah, that's a definite understanding, and it's also a lot more peaceful in the house when
For
you're
sure. Yeah.
next door in that sense. When did you get a sense that you had succeeded, not where you want to succeed, but that you were starting to make inroads, that you hit not a plateau. I'm trying to think of the word. How did you know you hit a certain point where you go, you know what, this is my path. It's working, and
Hmm.
obviously I've gotten external validation for it. So I'm clearly doing something right, and I'm going to continue to do that, churning out, word isn't churning, but creating new albums, writing new
Yeah.
material, performing and touring. Was there a point along the way that the light went on for you in that sense?
Yes. I mean, it's a little bit of a complicated answer. because truthfully, I feel like, I mean, for one, I just always wanted to do it. So um, there was no decision in that regard. It was just like, well, this is definitely what I'm going to do with my life, or I'm going to try. And then, I had the naivete of youth where I'm just like, there's no chance that it wouldn't work out. What do you mean? You know, but I do remember there was one, this was probably 20 years ago. Um, it was my band and I and Amy, my wife, she was with us all the time. And we were driving around in our van and trailer that was about to fall apart at any, it was literally held together with like a couple rolls of duct tape, this trailer. And our tour manager was always sat in the very back. He was always making calls to venues and stuff like that. And we were on our way to Denver, driving like 2 days to get to Denver. And I remember him saying like, "Hey, good news, the Denver show's sold out." And I do remember that moment. That was the first time I'd ever had a sold out show. And it was in Denver. I mean, like, it'd be one thing if it were in Indiana, but it was in Denver. And I thought, oh wow, okay, people are really coming out. I mean, because the first, when I graduated from college, I just hit the road and like, went on tour with zero regard for marketing, or I was just excited to go play in Memphis at the High Tone Cafe. And then when no one came, I mean, technically one guy came, and it was only because he thought I was John McLaughlin of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and he stayed for a couple songs and then left. But I was just so young and naive. I didn't even think of like, I guess at that point, success was just being at the High Tone Cafe. Like that's a real venue, like I had no regard for like, well, how do you sustain this financially? There was none of that. But I do remember that moment with Denver and the sold out show, thinking like, okay, maybe there will be other people a part of this. It won't just be my band and I just playing to
Exactly.
empty rooms.
You mentioned your band. Do you want to mention their names that were coming out with you?
Well, this show in Vegas, I'll be solo.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Wasn't sure about that. That's why I figured I'd ask. To
yeah. So
was
the band will be me and my right hand and my left hand.
and George and Ira Gershwin. All
Yeah,
of those
let's
guys
hope.
will be there. Yeah. In fact, you
Yeah,
can guarantee a sold out performance if you say John with George and Ira Gershwin. I think that,
with Gershwin.
yeah, I think that was
Yeah, we'll get some ticket sales from
yeah.
that.
Now, one of the hallmarks of your performances, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was wrong about the band, but I just assumed you were going to travel with a couple of people to back you up. But at any rate, you do have an impact emotionally on people that watch you perform. And you've told stories about people coming up to you, and I won't ask any specific stories, but what is that like when you get people coming up to you after a performance and
Hmm.
they're telling you how much your music, your presentation, your songs, your lyrics mean to them?
Yeah, I think, in the beginning, there's something uncomfortable about it. Um, that it took me a minute to kind of overcome that and not sell the moment short or cheapen the moment, or now I feel like I'm fully able to participate in that and be present for it and not feel like, I think in the beginning I felt like, well, the move here is to be humble and downplay it, and now I realize that cheapens it. um it's just meaningful every time. And I think it's maybe because I've lived some life now, and I can think of, in those moments, I think of the songs that have meant so much to me, and the songs that when I heard them, and this is a trait that I get from my grandfather, and my dad has it, and now I have it. It's like when there's a beautiful piece of music, I remember my grandfather would tear up talking about some big band piece that he heard back in the 70s or something. And here it is, you know, 30 years later and he can't he's crying just thinking about this piece of music. So there are pieces of music like that for me that like when I heard them, I couldn't even talk about them for a couple weeks because they were so moving. And in those moments you think, okay, so that's what this person is saying, that this song of mine was for them in some version of that, that it helped them through whatever time, or it was, it was, if it was a song that they loved and their dad loved or their mom loved, and now their mom just passed away, and that was one of the things that they will always have that reminds them of their mother. It's it's so beyond, um I don't know, it's so cool. It's like, well, that's why music exists, and I just get to be a part of it.
It was in essence their Rhapsody in Blue
Yeah, right.
when they're reacting to you in a particular song.
Yeah.
And have you thought about your songs in the sense your current album? I mentioned scenario, different way
Mhm.
to say it. Um, have you thought about what particularly is it about your approach, other than obviously these songs are personalized, but what it is that hits people directly, whereas other performers, as you say, there's music, but not the lyrics may not mean anything. You just like the beat or you just like the melody,
Mhm.
whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and I have, this is maybe a left turn from your question, but I
Okay.
have gone back and forth on, when it comes to lyrics, explaining what lyrics mean, or explain why I wrote this certain lyric, or like what is that song about? Um, because I don't want to, again, cheapen that, or put parameters on a particular song for someone by explaining it away, and taking, I want them to take whatever they take from it. And it's funny with this album Scenarios, and all the streaming services, I can get on, I can see obviously what each song is streaming every day, how many streams it gets, all that kind of stuff. And there's a song on there that if I have had 1,000 comments from fans about songs, 960 of them are about this one song called Acting on the new album. And it's interesting because it's not the number, it was not a single. I didn't put it out. I didn't even feature it. It's not one of the highest streamed songs. But there's something about that song that people immediately connect with. And in a way, I'm not surprised, because I'm like, this is a an aspect of life, that the particular subject matter of this song, that I think every single human being, unless you live alone on an island someplace, you deal with this. This is like a fundamental part of being a social human being on planet Earth. And I'd never written about it, and I was really happy with how the song came out, and happy with that, lyric. I think Ira would be he'd be like, oh, I like that lyric. That's a good one. You know. So I don't know, but back here while I'm writing those songs, you can feel it. It's like if it means something to me, it's probably going to connect with someone out there.
Well, that's a great way to leave it. My guest has been singer-songwriter Jon McLaughlin. He's going to be bringing his Scenarios tour to Myron's at the Smith Center on April the 11th. For ticket information, go to thesmithcenter.com. And for everything about Jon, go to johnmcl.com, johnmcl.com. And you can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And Jon, thanks for being on the show.
I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Here, absolutely. Thank you. See you next time.